In this exercise, we're going to set up an Adobe Animate document and create a simple bouncing ball. Now this ball is going to show you how to create new objects, add keyframes to the timeline, and also some easing in and easing out to make it look like it's a natural bouncing ball. So let's get started. To get started on this exercise, we're going to create a new Animate document from scratch. Once you've launched Adobe Animate, let's choose Create New. And inside of the New Document dialog box, let's set the height, width, and frame rate. The width is going to be 1920 pixels, and the height is going to be 1080 pixels. Notice my unit is automatically in pixels, so we'll keep it that way, but set your frame rate to be 24 frames per second. We're also going to keep the platform type at ActionScript 3. We'll say Create, and go ahead and open up our document. Now from here, if at any time you've made a mistake in creating your document and you need to make a change to it, you can always locate your Properties panel on the right-hand side. Make sure to choose the Doc for Document, and down within it you can see the document settings, and here's where you can change up your height and your width, your frame rate, even the color of your stage, and other things about this document. Also, by default, this is showing your stage at 100%. Now, depending on the kind of screen that you're working on, you may see more or less of your frame or your entire screen. But if you want to see everything that we're working on, locate the zoom rate up at the top right-hand corner. Right now it's at 100%, but if we click down, we can say Show the Frame or Show All, and this will show everything that's inside of this frame of this scene. Now the first thing we want to do to create an animated ball is to draw the ball itself. To do this, let's go over to our toolbox and locate the oval tool. Notice that if you click and hold on it, the keyboard shortcut is O. There's also a primitive oval tool. We're not going to be using this one, so make sure you've got the regular oval tool. Now before we draw anything, with the tool selected, let's look at your fill and stroke color at the bottom of your toolbox. Right now we've got our fill and stroke as something other than the default. So to restore it back to default, you can click on the little black and white icon right here, and this will set your fill color to be white and your outline color or your stroke color to be a solid black. From here, when we click and drag, this will create a simple circle inside of the area. Now if you hold down Shift while you click and drag, it'll give you a perfect circle. So let's create a simple one at the very top, not too big and not too small. Now in order to animate anything, we need to convert it to a symbol. In order to do this, let's select our symbol. So I'm going to go up to the top of my toolbox and choose my black arrow selection tool. Then I'm going to click and drag over the entire thing to make sure all of it is selected. I know all of it is selected because I can see the little dot pattern inside of the object that I've created. With it selected, there's two different ways that you can create a symbol. You can either right-click on the symbol, or if you're on a laptop that allows two-finger clicking, this will open up a little side pop-out menu. Or you can hold down Control and also click on the symbol to access this pop-out menu. Looking at the very bottom of this, you can see there's Convert to Symbol. The other way to quickly convert something to a symbol is by hitting the F8 key on your keyboard. That's the keyboard shortcut that's good to know. Whatever you do, choose Convert to Symbol, and let's give it a name and set its properties. So I'm going to call this the ball symbol. The type is going to be a graphic, and we want to make sure its registration is set nicely in the center. So make sure to choose the center icon for that. Everything else will remain exactly the same. When we say OK, you'll notice that our graphic now has a blue outline around it, and I can go to my library panel and notice that the ball is saved within the library. Now at any time, if I need to access anything that we create or use within our document, the library is from here, and later on we'll go in here and change up and alter our graphic. But for now, that's what the library will allow you to do. The other thing I'll point out at this time is you also have properties for that object. So with the object selected, if you click on the Properties panel, notice there's an Object submenu. You can see how it's a graphic, and if you scroll down, there's lots of different effects and things that you can do to alter and edit that particular graphic and object that you've created. More about this in future exercises and projects. Now let's make our symbol move. In order to do this, we're going to go down to our timeline. You can see that we've been creating everything in this first frame. This is a keyframe because it's got a little dot inside of that first frame area. We want to have the ball bounce down and then back up within 1 second. This means all of the movement needs to happen within the first 24 frames, and on that 25th frame, it needs to return back to its original key position. So to do this, let's go to that 25th keyframe. So I'm going to select it here and insert a new keyframe right there. So with it selected, I'm going to two-finger or right-click on it, and then choose Insert Keyframe. This will create a new keyframe there, and it will fill in all the frames in between with this one. Now that I have two keyframes for the up position, let's do a new keyframe for the bottommost position known as the contact position. To do this, let's return to our timeline and let's choose the middle of our action, which will be the 13th frame. Now I know that this is the 13th frame because that's what's indicated right here. With the 13th frame selected, you can right-click or two-finger click on it, and let's insert another keyframe. You can see there's now a keyframe right here, and with this keyframe selected, I can click on the ball and drag it straight down, and if you hold the Shift key, it'll give you a straight movement all the way down to the bottom of our document. Remember, keyframes indicate key movements within your animation. So if I was to move my playhead back to this position, you can see how this keyframe is up till it goes down to this keyframe and then back up to the third keyframe. Now that we've roughed in these key movements, let's go in and add the animation to it. We're going to go back down to our timeline and click on the first keyframe. To insert a tween motion, we're going to right-click on it, and at the very top, let's insert a classic tween. This is going to change your keyframe timeline to a purple arrow, and what this is doing is indicating to your computer to move the ball from this key position all the way down to the next keyframe position and to change it up at every frame along the way. Let's do the same for the second keyframe. So right-click or two-finger click on the second keyframe, choose Create Classic Tween, and you can see how this will add a tweening motion between that keyframe and the third keyframe. If you ever want to test this, you can always hit the return key. This will automatically play everything that's on your timeline. Another way of testing something, especially if it's a lot more complex of an animation or artwork build, you can go up to Control, down to Test, and this will open up Adobe Animate's automatic player. Notice that this will play it over and over again. Once you're finished testing it, you can click on the little red X to close it out and return back to Adobe Animate. With this done, let's go up to File and let's do a Save As to save our document. I've got all of my files saved within my digital animation classwork folder, so I can go back and find them. Do make sure to add your name to it. We're going to call this the ball bounce. I'm going to give it the name 1. The file format is going to be an animate document, so .fla, and we'll hit save and save it within there. Now let's change the color of our ball that we've created. In order to do this, let's go over to our Libraries panel again and double click on the ball graphic. This will take you into kind of an isolated mode that only allows you to edit just this one graphic symbol that we've created. Now in order to select the symbol, if you click once, this will select the fill color, but if you click on it again, or double click on it, this will also get the outline or the stroke color. We can then go down to our fill and stroke color panel down here. Clicking on the fill color, let's choose it to be kind of a mid-tone of an orange, something like this. And if we click on our stroke color or outline color, we can set that to be a dark red. If you need to be able to change the thickness of your stroke, this is where we can also open up our Properties panel. And with it selected, here you can see the color and style for the fill and the stroke. This can also be set from this panel. Down here, we can change the stroke size by clicking on this and making it larger or smaller. In this case, we'll set it to be right at 5 pixels wide. We'll keep the style just a solid uniform, but you can also change up other things about the stroke from this position as well. Once this is done, we can return back to our original scene by going up to the top left-hand side and clicking on the little arrow to go out of the isolated ball back to scene 1. Now when I play it, you can see it's changed from the default black and white ball to just a solid orange and red ball. Now let's adjust the timing that it takes for this ball to bounce. Right now it takes 1 second for it to go down and back up. If we needed to slow this down, we need to add more time to our timeline. So let's go down to our timeline and let's add more frames between this first set of keyframes. So I'm going to select anywhere between this first set, and you can right click or 2-finger click on it, and you can tell it to insert a frame. Notice that F5 is the keyboard shortcut. When you do this, it's going to move all of the frames over by 1 frame. This will add more time to it. Let's do it again 2 more times. So you can either right click on it and choose insert frame, or you can hit the F5 key to also insert a frame. Notice that we put 3 frames right here, so let's add 3 more frames to the second set of keyframes. So selecting between these 2 keyframes, I'm going to hit the F5 key once, twice, 3 times. Now that it takes an entire 30 frames to go down and back up, it'll be moving much slower because we've added 6 extra frames to it. At any time, if you've made a mistake, you can also undo this by control clicking or right clicking on it, and notice you can remove keyframes. The keyboard shortcut for this is Shift F5. From here is a good time to save, so we'll go up to File and save it. Now if I were to play my animation, you can see that this is moving up and down, but it doesn't look like a ball that's bouncing very naturally. We want to be able to add some easing in and easing out. This allows the ball to quickly speed up as it falls and then slow back down as it rises back to its original position, the way it would naturally. In order to see this in action, let's go down to our timeline and select the middlemost keyframe, and let's turn on our onion skinning. Onion skin can be found under this icon, and with it selected, you can see that there's 2 little bars that happen on the left and the right side of your timeline. This will show you the action before and the action after the currently most selected frame. Now if I was to click and drag backwards on this one, you can see the blue, or in this case the purple, is actually going to show you what's happening several frames before, and the green is, if I click and drag, will show you what's going to happen several frames ahead in time. If I look at the action that I see with this one, you can see how they're all evenly spaced out. Now if we want to add easing in and easing out, we need to be able to adjust the spacing between each one of these. Luckily, Animate makes it easy to adjust that. Let's go back down to our timeline and select the first keyframe, and I'm going to click on my onion skin and drag it all the way to this second keyframe. Here you can see the spacing for it. With the first keyframe selected, go over to your Properties panel and under the frame, locate the Tweening subframe. From here you can see the effect of the easing that's placed right here. We're going to keep it as a classic ease. You can dial in the exact amount of easing in or out that you want. If you click on the number, you can drag it to the left to give you a negative number or to the right to give you a positive number. Let's click and drag all the way to -100, and you can see how this will start to space out all of the easing for this one. Now we can select our second keyframe, and let's have it ease into the other from here. With that selected, we can pull our onion skinning just to see the future ones. And with the second keyframe still selected, let's go back over to our tweening inside of our frame, and let's do +100 for this number. With that, you can see how it's going to ease back up to its original position from here. Now when I hit return to play it, you can see how it naturally drops and picks back up. If I wanted to repeatedly play it, we can go back up to Control And let's test the movie. You can see how it's now dropping a little bit more naturally. With all this done, we're finished with this portion of the exercise. Again, let's go up to File and Save and locate this FLA file to upload to Moodle. Now when you do this, there's a couple of things I do want to point out. First off, here's the flash file that you need to upload. Notice that it's called an FLA file. It's got the name that you gave it as. There's a second file called a recover file. Now this is good to have as long as you've got this file open. If Animate ever crashes, it will always be able to recover the last point that it was saved. Do not upload this recover file to the Moodle page for your grade. Also, whenever you test your animations, especially if you're using Animate's native player, this is going to generate an SWF file. Do not upload the SWF file. The only thing you need to turn in is this FLA file in order to get your grade for this exercise.